making the story to be a spiritual story by using real people. And here he says, they're children of one covenant, Mount Sinai, and they are slaves. What does he say here? Hagar was a slave, so her children were also slaves, right? He said she was born a slave, and her children were born slaves. And he pulls this idea of Mount Sinai into this. Anyone know the significance of Mount Sinai? The law. The law, but not only just the law, but we'd also think of Moses and the story of Moses and the slaves, and they're led out of slavery, and they were given the law. So in their mind already, the hearers of this story, when they hear Mount Sinai, think the law, and they think slavery. All right, so here, as he's telling the story, he says this one child was born under the law, a slave to the law, bound to the law. They had no freedom of themselves. They were guided by this law. So he's using the story, not to be taken literally, but figuratively. He said, here, you too were born under the law. So he begins to lay it out. He says, Hagar stands for Mount Sinai in Arabia, which is interesting. We don't have time to get into that. And then it says, corresponding to the present city of Jerusalem. He said, right now, as we stand here in Galatia, and you think about all the laws that you're wanting to go back into, it represents this idea of this Jewish teaching of the law. And he says, and it's corresponding to present-day Jerusalem under the bondage of the law. And unfortunately, spiritually speaking, there are many still in present-day Jerusalem under the bondage of the law. And here's what he's saying here. He said, you were born under the law, and you were a slave to the law. What does that mean? Everything that you did was under the control of this law. You were not free. He says, do you understand what the law is doing? And he tells them, he said, you have a choice. Do I want to be a slave to the law, or do I want to be free? And he says, you were children of the law, but he goes on. And he says, not only this present city of Jerusalem, but the Jerusalem that is above is free. She is our mother. That is so weird. What is he saying? And this is a really cool thing, and this is, forgive me for this, okay? This is what I have typically in my notes, and I'm letting you see some of it. All right, so this is how this would be interpreted, okay? So especially in like Hebrew poetry, there's something called parallelism, all right? It's not really that important, but Tom knows what I'm saying. All right, there's a lot of confusing things about this, but it's a way of interpreting something. It would be this means this, this means this, this means this. So like in Hebrew poetry, it'd be like, as a furnace is tried 7 times, so is, silver, blah, blah, blah. That would be poetry. It's saying just like this, this. Here is what Paul is doing, something that they would understand. Don't worry about the structure. It's just, this is how it works. He says you have Hagar, Mount Sinai, slavery, Jerusalem. Jerusalem, freedom, Mount Zion, our mother. So what is he saying? He said, see how these equate? A, A1, B, B1, C, C1. And what are they all leading to? They're pointing to the ones I've highlighted. They're leading to the middle. You say, why is this important? He is starting to show us when he's laying out this argument. This is the structure of his argument. He's saying, look, all of it's pointing towards this. You currently in Jerusalem are slaves. But Jerusalem